Good afternoon.
I got this whole thing figured out.
We'll see.
I'm Sheila Purcell, and I'll be moderating this panel on engaging the real world, globalization, and technology. No small task, right? So fortunately, we have all the right people to help us explore these questions, and we're going to start with Suk, who is, as many of you know, the managing director here at Straus. He'll be talking about culture and decision-making. Then we'll move on to Amy Schmitz, who currently is at the University of Missouri, previously was at the University of Colorado, and has recently written a book with Colin Roll on online dispute resolution called The New Handshake. After Amy, we'll move on to Hal Abramson, who's conducted trainings in 6 continents, 19 countries, starting back in 1992. And he'll be speaking about the Singapore Convention and also some of his work abroad over many decades. Then we'll move to Allison Carroll from Northwestern, who's the first dean of law and technology. And she'll be speaking about legal analytics and promoting emotional intelligence and other skill sets. And then we'll wrap up with Colin Rule, who we saved for the end because we know how lively he can get. And we don't want it to spin totally out of control at the outset, but that'll be our climax. So anyway, with that, we'll get started with Suk. Suk Simran, sorry.
I took permission from Sheila Purcell to stand, if that's okay with everyone. Because I tend to sleep when I sit, so it's better. So my presentation is more from a humanistic angle, and what Sheila forgot is that there's a danger in the end, but also danger in the front. So I've got a stopwatch, I've got this watch, and I know Sheila will pick up the new topic. So let's get started. I want to talk to you about identity. So a couple of people asked me recently that what makes you successful in the US after having grown up in India and having taught in India and other continents and everything. And I said, I bring my identity into my teaching. I bring everything I have to my teaching. So today I'm going to share some secrets that I have that many of you already practice, because hopefully you may take something away from it if you may. So the first thing is getting to know who you are. For me, it's very critical. So I actually recently started looking into why do I wear a turban? What does it mean to wear a turban? And I found this World War II photo of Sikh men fighting for France, for Britain, and then I looked deeper. I said, that doesn't give me all the answers. So I found my grandfather's photo, who actually fought for India's independence and died working with Gandhi. Okay, they were not close friends. They worked for the same party. Just want to be very clear. And my father, grandfather, if you look at his kurta, a shirt, Indian shirt, he's made a jute. Jute is made in India. So it's deeply about let's wear local costumes, and he fought for several things. But one of the things he fought for was turban. If you look at the man on the left-hand side, that's a Sikh turban, which is very different than you can see an Iranian turban, than a Taliban turban, than an Indian man, a Hindu turban, or a usual, what we say, Muslim scholar turban. And what you see here is identity. It's so easy whenever I travel in the world, people look at me and they call me, hey, are you Taliban? And I've heard that. Or people pull a gun at me in Salem, Oregon, and say, go back to your country. And I was about to argue with this man and say, this is my country. My wife was on the phone and she said, honey, you say, yes, sir. And I said, yes, sir. And he let me go. He didn't know what to do when I said, yes, sir. I'm going to go back to my country. So I came to my country, which is now LA. So what you have to notice is what makes us. So I look at this question of beauty. What is beauty? I think I'm very beautiful. You look amazing wearing a turban and a beard. But many people, unfortunately, wrongly, dishonestly disagree with that. And they think there's something scary about looking at turban and looking at beard. Or you associate and then you publish a title or an article, unfortunately, and the title of the article is, I am not a terrorist. Just a suggestion to everyone, never publish an article in a newspaper with that title. Because if you go to Google and you type terrorist, on the 17th link will be my article. So what I've learned is to embrace that identity and then travel around the world. So we conclude the part of turban. Sikh men wear turban not just for faith. I don't even wear turban for just culture. I wear it because my grandfather gave up his turban while he was being occupied or kept in captivity by Britishers. And his turban fell and he said, I'll only wear it back if India gains independence. he kept his promise. So I wear it for multiple reasons. It's so easy to tag a person to a single story. It's so difficult to know the multiple stories that makes a person. And that's the message I try to carry wherever I go. I was recently in Kenya. It was a beautiful experience, and then I went to Nigeria. What I'm learning from these cultures is I actually dug up what's the local way of resolving conflict. And what you may not realize, there is a talking stick in Kenya, there's a talking stick in Africa. You only speak when you have the talking stick in your hand. There's so much deep listening we can learn from other cultures. So in my travels, I've worked with some amazing Supreme Court of India attorneys. And that took me to Saudi Arabia. Two students from Willamette University hosted me in their house when I was in Saudi Arabia. And I'll tell you one thing, the whole village came to attend to me. All the stereotypes of me, a Sikh man with a turban growing up in India, going to a Muslim land in the Dammam, Saudi Arabia, were broken. When the men, mostly men who interacted with, were so kind, and women who came to our classes. Why do I share these stories with you? Because stories is what makes us. This is from Japan, one of the most amazing trips. My colleague Marcelo Rosalila, also a professor here, and an amazing trainer. We went together. And one of the best things about Japanese was the discipline, the strict schedule of time, organized. And we thought America is individualist, America is on time. Well, invite you to Kyoto, Japan, and you'll find how different you are.
You're good. You're fine.
Oh, wow, okay. So, lastly, this is Lima, Peru. I think change also happens by working with decision makers. Now I'm with the Weinstein International Foundation Board. We are working with the Minister of Human Rights and Law in Lima. And the best part of this trip was that the minister said, I've actually never heard of mediation. You guys came to my office, I'm so pleased. And I'm going to do my best to implement mediation in the local laws so it becomes a mentoring. It hasn't become yet, but it'll become mentoring future. So I started dreaming big. How can I contribute going global and talking about mediation? How can I go further? And brings me back to home. So I'm going to play a 10-second video. This is a 1-minute video. We don't have time to play 10 seconds of my daughter saying something to you.
My name is Apart. When I grow up, I would like to be the president. Why? It's because of a few things that I'm against. But the main thing that I'm talking about is Olympics. To me, I don't understand why girls and boys are separated in Olympics. They both have the same body.
I'm going to stop here. She goes on top of Olympics, not eating meat, she's going to convert you all to vegetarians. And then she's thirsty, said, I'm not happy looking at TV. I think people are fighting all the time on TV, in news. So that's my 8-year-old thinking about the future, how she wants to be the president. And why do I bring it up here? That's the American dream. If this was 8-year-old India, unfortunately, where I grew up, somebody would have told, sit down, that's your not time to talk. You don't talk like that. You don't have that big dream. Start small. You better be a lawyer first. Or a doctor. And this country gives that creative thought. And the people in this room are the one who gave me that creative thought. That dream to dream big. Professor Bob Bailey, he's not here today. He's in Missouri as well. I remember the first arbitration lecture he gave to me in the University of Missouri, and I stuttered heavily. I was a very heavy stutterer in public. It was 2005, and Professor Bailey called me, can I speak to you afterwards? Yes, sir. I'm like, oh my gosh. And he said, he caught me outside. Look, a mind of an American law professor that you may not realize sometimes you need an outsider to tell you the beauty of your own mind. We have problems, we have issues, but think about the beauty that we also have in this room. And Professor Bailey said, Suk Simran, I said, yes, sir. You can speak? I said, yes, sir. But I applaud your courage. I applaud you got up and you presented as an international student. Please don't give up, continue. Nobody else had ever told me that. That built me up. And the problem now is you can't shut me up. So in conclusion, with Professor Leela Love, we wrote an article and we came to a conclusion that if you bring to any negotiation, any mediation, your tan man tan, which is your body, your soul, your mind, your heart, in short, your presence, you may become successful. And my question to end you with is, do you bring your identity to your teaching? Are you afraid of it? Is there some fear out there? Or do you embrace it? Impartially. Nothing to be proud of. Just knowing that's your identity. And how do you bring it? And I bring it to my teaching. This is my first 5 to 10 minutes of my lecture in my cross-culture dispute resolution class. This is how I start. What it makes it opens me up. It makes me vulnerable in front of my students. There's nothing special here. I share the struggles of my grandfather, my father, and myself. And we end with a fellowship, and we end with an amazing theme like this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Great. Amy.
Yes.
And we've all agreed that we're going to use these chimes, so I hope no one takes offense.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to Tom and to Nancy and for everyone with organizing this fantastic conference, really. So I was joking with Tom, and I said, it's kind of like the dispute resolution prom, and Tom is the king. Anyway, but I wanted to speak about technology by its very nature just leads to globalization, right? And so technology makes it easier for us to think about dispute resolution at a global level. When I think back to even UNCITRAL and the working group 3 and what they were trying to accomplish, it was because of the international nature of e-commerce that they wanted to create an online dispute resolution portal that would allow for resolution of these sorts of disputes using online dispute resolution. Well, it's funny, here I am sort of an advocate for it, but I'm also a critic. And I worry about access to justice. I worry about whether we're the dangers of digitizing due process. And I worry about these things as well. And so it sort of leads to a lot of critical thinking, which leads to teaching a class. So I've created and I teach a class on dispute resolution in the digital age. And it changes every semester, and it changes in terms of what I need to do and the kind of materials I include. I create my own materials each semester, which can change with what are the hot topics. We do simulations. I have been super blessed to have Colin come to my class and work with the students as well, and to use other platforms and have my students do simulations, to actually do online negotiation, online mediation, and then to break it down and really talk about best practices, what worked, what didn't work. It's really interesting in different kinds of contexts, right? So in different kinds of disputes. And the idea with the class then is it culminates in a project, and each student takes on some kind of dispute, and then they create, it becomes sort of like a dispute system design class, but using technology, right? And really focusing on access to justice and what is the best way to use technology to advance resolution of that particular type of dispute. And students come up with fantastic ideas. I even have had a student connected with a developer or with people who might be interested in actually taking those ideas and running with them. So it's been really great. Well, what I would like to talk about, though, is my new challenge. And the new challenge, to be honest, I'm afraid. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to overcome this hurdle. We're moving the LLM and dispute resolution online at the University of Missouri. What that means is I have to take my class in dispute resolution in the digital age and put it online. So it'll be an online class in online dispute resolution. So it's really technologically linked, it's global. You'll have students from all over the world who will be able to be part of the class. But it's a challenge, right? So thinking about how do we make an asynchronous class at its core, but yet have synchronous moments and have simulations, have students set up teams and work together, and then still break it down. Because one of the most fantastic things as a teacher, what I just absolutely love, is breaking down after you go through a simulation and talking with the students and seeing their interaction and sort of that organic learning that comes from the students and as a group. How do we do that in an online environment? And so I'm looking for ideas. Anybody who wants to talk to me, because I'm working on it right now and trying to think about all the different ways that we can use different pedagogies and think creatively. We've talked a lot during this conference about the ways that dispute resolution education is changing, and and the challenges and opportunities. And sometimes, we might fail forward. Do I anticipate that I'll make mistakes? Absolutely. But hopefully I'll learn from them, and over time this can develop. The LLM in dispute resolution is going to include not just my class, but it'll be up and running starting in the fall when we have people enrolled. So we'll see how it works. Maybe next year I'll be reporting on it. Hopefully it'll be a good thing, but we'll see how it goes. We're going to have dispute system design, arbitration, non-binding methods, cross-cultural dispute resolution, conflict management, and major research projects, as well as a new class in public policy dispute resolution. Kind of thinking more about leadership as well, as we've heard some discussion on that. And it'll have a lot of international students and allow for people to not have to come to the middle of Missouri, which isn't exactly where, it's not Pepperdine as far as we don't the ocean. At least I haven't seen it, if it exists in Missouri. So, it's a new challenge that we're going through. But it also, again, think about hot topics. And when you create your own materials, I have an open and accessible educational resource so that students never have to pay a dime for course materials, which makes it fun because every semester I can come up with new things. And so right now, for example, I include quite a bit on smart contract dispute resolution and the advent of new dispute resolution processes that use the blockchain. And students, of course, they get all excited about something, the bright, shiny new toy, but also to break it down and to critique it and look at the different ideas that are coming out of different companies throughout the world, really. Also, we've talked a lot about online dispute resolution in the courts, which I'm sure Colin is going to add to, but that's a really hot topic right now, and thinking about access to justice and how do we measure whether or not these online courts are truly delivering and expanding who and how individuals are able to access remedies through court processes. Thinking about contextual dispute resolution, again, are there certain kinds of disputes that should never be determined online? Are there certain things that we should just never allow for it to be online? So kind of working through that. Another area that we've been looking at is best practices. So I'm the co-chair for technology for the dispute resolution section for the American Bar Association, but now we also have an ODR task force. And if anyone is interested in joining the task force, come see me because we're gathering up individuals to join that. We want to make it really broadly bring in different individuals from different areas, self-represented litigants, people from the courts, people from every area, so we can come up with best practices, not only for the courts, but also in terms of other sorts of dispute resolution and the way we use technology to resolve disputes. So anyway, I guess I will.
Got 2 minutes.
I have 2 minutes. Okay. so these are all different sort of challenges and opportunities, I think, in thinking about technology. I know we in the ADR field think, well, wait a minute, how can you replicate empathy? How can you actually resolve a dispute? We're not just looking to get an outcome or a resolution, but also we have to look at the how. Is it procedurally just? Is it a procedural process where there's satisfaction? And I think as we move in this new age with technology, we really have to guard due process in the way that we use technology to advance any kind of conflict resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. Wow. And now, Hal.
I'm going to ask to talk about 2 topics, so I will.
Go for it.
2-minute warning. I may shift very quickly. The one topic is about training abroad and some of my experience in doing that, and the other is talking about the Singapore Mediation Convention, which is something I've been deeply involved with from the beginning, and I just want to highlight some issues coming up with that come August. How many people here have trained in a country other than their own? I haven't finished the question. Finish. Before year 2000, not Philippines. Before year 2000, okay, a half dozen people, maybe 10 people. How about between 2000 and 2010? How many people have trained in a country other than their own? Okay, that's probably double, triple. How about in the last 5 years? How many people in this room have trained in a country other than their own? Almost audience going up. How many people expect to be training in a country other than their own over the next 5 years? Or at least hope to. Okay, a lot of people. So it's that got me into this thinking about how to be trained abroad, because a lot of people are doing it and it's increasing in number. I did my first training program abroad in 1992 in Moscow. We're training a lot since then. And what got me concerned with doing training abroad is something we're all worried about, and that's engaging in cultural blunders, making mistakes. And I have some, and I'll share some of those with you, and I'm sure everyone here has made their mistakes. And the other is the concern of us being viewed as cultural imperialists. That we come in there and the way we do it is the right way. What's always interesting to me about those people who are concerned about that, in fact everyone in this world is concerned about coming across that way, is that everyone is always very worried about that. But the question in my mind was, what do we do to guard against it? And that prompted me to write an article. Now it's dated 2009. Just for the record, it was not in the Ohio State Journal, but it was in Pepperdine. And in that journal, I wrote an article entitled "Outward Bound to Other Cultures: 7 Guidelines to U.S. Dispute Resolvers for Training Abroad." And in there, I developed some 7 guidelines you may find of some interest. But one I'm going to focus on right now, and that's the need to adapt material to local circumstances and how easy it is to make a mistake. And I've done my share of those mistakes. But I just want to share with you the way I approach it now. And the key is, in my mind, if you try to train in another country, is be sure you got a good host. So I always take my material and have my material reviewed by the local host. I just had that experience recently in a country in the United States when I did this work for a year as a visiting professor at Air Force Academy. And that was going to a foreign country for me. And when going there, I discovered that they were doing all these exercises, and off-the-shelf exercises that I was quite familiar with, like some exercises that things named Saltman. And I thought, are you kidding me? I said, why are you doing these kind of exercises? You need to have exercises that are locally developed, that make sense to the local people. And the local trainees. And so I did was start contacting the people that are wearing these uniforms all over the place and asking them to tell me about what their needs are. What kind of problems do they confront in the negotiation arena? And when I go abroad, what I always do is get someone locally to go over one of my primary problems I use, which is called, I'm sure no one's ever heard of it, called French bites. By now, I have like 6 versions of this. Because every time I go to another country, I say, let me say the simple hypotheticals, allowing a dispute. They go over it, and they change the facts, and they create the dynamic that makes sense for them locally. And then give them material that resonates for them, which I think is a big part of our task in training abroad. So the reality is I find my training abroad, I'm always finding surprises. One example that leave on was a horrifying one for me. And it relates to a discussion we already had here about caucusing versus joint sessions. So I'm doing a program in the Netherlands, and I'm using my own philosophy. It's about choice, give them an idea of what the options are out there. And I talk about the pros and cons of caucusing, joint sessions, and a combination of the two. And I clearly have my own preference. I prefer joint sessions, but only limited to caucusing. I mentioned that. And then at the end of the training program, I do what I expect a lot of people here do with training programs. And at the end, you say, okay, any takeaways? Anything that you actually use? And you go around the room, you say, any takeaways, any takeaways. And I discovered they all had the same takeaway. What they said to me was, in our country, we do no of caucusing. It's all joint sessions. We thought that's the only way people do it. And now, we have this training program, we're going to start doing caucusing. I will. Okay, on to the Singapore. The Singapore Treaty, as some of you probably know, it's opening up for signature in August, which I'm genetically. We'll open up for signature in August in Singapore. It's the end of a process of 3 years. It was adopted by the General Assembly last December. Now the process will begin. We're opening up for signature. There are lots of interesting lessons with this, but I want to highlight one issue because the media is in this room. When you read this treaty, you can read a lot by one section. The one section has to do with providing a defense against enforcement for bad behavior by mediators. Mm-hmm. And I already had heard some people complain about this and go, how do you let them do that? How can you go and have a defense? because we know the people in this field how that can be used and abused, how it can totally undermine the enforcement process, because you can always come up with some reason why there's some alleged conflict of interest, or someone didn't follow some kind of code requirement, and therefore we should not enforce the agreement. And so there were a bunch of mediators in the room, and we all went into crisis mode, trying to figure out what to do. We argued against having anything, but it became clear that some people wanted to have some protection and were worried about bad mediators. And so here's the language that's in there. And the language is designed to make it very difficult to raise the defense unless you have a really good case. What the language provides for is that the person with the defense has to prove that the failure, for example, to disclose the information. Look at the exact language here. Read the wrong section here. Yeah, here it is. The failure to disclose had a material impact or undue influence on a party, without which failure that party would not have entered into the settlement agreement. They had to prove a causal relationship between alleged misbehavior and the substantive results. And when you read that language with care, you'll see that it's very difficult to assert, and except for those cases where it's very well deserved. So that was our big compromise. The other comment I want to mention about the treaty is that, and I'll finish up on this, is that there's been a lot of people have said to me, who cares? There's never an enforcement issue. There's barely, where's Jim Colton when we need him? Don't sit here and tell us all about that. There's never an enforcement problem with this. Why spend 3 years using all these resources in the United Nations with 60 country delegations and probably 30, 40 NGOs participating in this drafting process, produce a treaty that should never be used? And the answer is, hopefully that's true. And I think that probably will be true. But I never felt that was a treaty that was going to be adopted that would lead to wide use. But I do think it offers 2 important benefits. And the benefits are relevant to us that are worried about future mediation. One is that it eliminates an excuse that at least some of us here at attorneys say. I'm nervous about mediation because there's no enforcement process. But now we will soon have the New York Convention process as it applies to mediation. And so those people who are looking for excuses will no longer have that excuse for not using mediation. The other benefit, however, I think is more significant. The other benefit going forward is that it gives international legitimacy to the use of mediation. To the extent to which you solve that as sort of a side process, we'll now have an international treaty that recognizes the validity of this process. And so while I hope the treaty will not be used, I hope the treaty will offer us in the field of mediation the benefits so that the process will be used more widely. Because for those that study the international arena, it's not used as much as it should be. Hopefully this treaty will promote and support its use. And my last comment is, it's not adopted yet by countries. There's a lot of work still ahead. What's going to happen October 7th is they'll open the signature, and then the hard work really begins. At that point, it's country by country adoption, and the U.S. is not going to be the first one to sign it. And those in the U.S. that know people in the U.S., please do your lobbying. For those people here from other countries, please go back to your home leaders and bring to the attention of this treaty. Hopefully, it'll take 3 countries, only 3 countries. As soon as 3 countries adopt it, then it will become operational. Or at least the countries that adopted it, and then it will become effective. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Hal. Awesome.
Sorry about the slides popping up earlier, but I want to talk a little bit about the Delta model. I'll explain what that is. I wanted to take this opportunity to dig a little bit deeper into a conversation that was started on the DRL listserv and indisputably ADR Prof blog, and it's come up in a couple of different sessions about the decision at Georgia State to what sounded like prioritize funding for expansion of the legal analytics lab over an ADR professor faculty position. As many of you know, a couple years ago, I took on a new role at Northwestern as our first ever assistant dean of law and technology initiatives, which meant for the last 2 years I've been tasked with exploring the impact that technology is having on the legal profession as a whole. So sort of stepped outside of just being in DR and looking at the legal profession more generally. And when I go to these sessions, they're certainly talking about ODR. Colin has been a speaker at a number of those sessions. We have some folks from our field there, but they're talking a lot more about data analytics and artificial intelligence. So I wanted to start by just sharing with you how that's right, how they're talking about the future of legal education and what is necessary. And the term that they're using the most is this notion of a T-shaped lawyer. A T-shaped professional is in contrast to an I-shaped professional that has a single area of expertise. A T-shaped professional has that single area of expertise, but it is complemented by a broader awareness of related areas. And so in the law, they've been defining that as a deep expertise in the law with a broader understanding of areas such as data analytics, process improvement, and technology. There's more, but these are the ones that get the most attention. So this notion of a T-shaped lawyer is getting a lot of traction. It was first coined in the law in 2014, so it's only about 5 years old. But professors are using this as a basis for new curricular development. Law schools are using this as a basis for new first-year programs. It's taking over our lawyering programs to teach this. Adding to doctrinal classes, not necessarily about lawyering, but about lawyering through the use of technology. So coincidentally, around the time that the blog post and the discussion on the listserv was taking place, I had been invited to go to Georgia State and participate in their law review symposium entitled Legal Intelligence Through Artificial Intelligence. And I happened to be in Colin's position, the last person to speak on a panel, it was actually the last panel of the day. And it gave me the opportunity to sit for a full day and just listen to really fun, fascinating things that people are doing with artificial intelligence and machine learning, which we can talk about. That's not really the point of this. Just as I sat there, almost every single speaker talked about emotional intelligence, communication, the skills related to understanding our client, our role as lawyers, trusted advisor, lawyers, counselor, lawyers, problem solver. And this is not the first time this has happened to me at a law tech event where I'm sitting in the audience going, this is what we teach. We're here, we can do this. As dispute resolution professionals. But here are these law tech folks talking about the advances in technology, the types of skills that law students need to master in order to succeed in the 21st century. But they haven't lost sight of the equally important skills that we teach. And in fact, some are saying that they're becoming increasingly important. And as artificial intelligence begins to replicate some aspects of lawyering, like making legal research that much faster and easier, being able to do legal analysis, using data analytics to predict outcome in courts. What it can't do is replicate the relationship. The ability to sit with a client and look at that data, using the technology to enhance our skills as a lawyer to better represent our clients, but to have a conversation with them, to do what we do, understand the full context of their situation and how we want to apply this new information because of data analytics. So I go back to this T-shaped lawyer. I'm like, well, where's emotional intelligence in this thing? Why is this getting so much traction if it doesn't actually represent what I'm hearing from the law tech folks? So about 18 months ago, I joined a small working group of individuals from, we've got Vanderbilt, Michigan State, Northwestern, as well as Thomson Reuters, who were trying to develop this new competency model that builds off the notion of a T-shaped lawyer. So the stem of the T is right at the base of the triangle. The top of the T, which was the data analytics, process improvement, and technology. We put on the right side of the triangle and just renamed it more generally the business of law or legal operations. And then we added a third side, the spotlight, on the types of skills that we teach. Personal effectiveness skills related to communication, relationship management. So Thomson Reuters has been taking the lead in doing some validation studies on this model, and I expect that they'll be releasing some information, a white paper in the next 6 months or so. But in the meantime, I've been playing around with it and saying, okay, I love this model, it's fun, you'll hear me talk about it all the time now. But it's still one size fits all as to what it means to be a legal professional, and as somebody who fought against that in law school and went into ADRs, I don't have to do it that way. I felt like we need to have a more dynamic understanding of what a legal professional is and the types of skills that we need to master. And so by taking the midpoint of this triangle, we can shift it to represent differing degrees of depth and skill that somebody needs within these 3 different areas. So any type of legal profession, any role in any type of law firm, legal department, or other, not even being practicing law, but legal technologists, legal solution architects, some of these new roles that we're seeing pop up, can be mapped on this competency model by shifting the midpoint. So that's fun. I can talk to you about that. The real reason why I wanted to share this with you is because I was so struck by this conversation that we were having on Melissa around the law that could easily be read as a dean making a decision of either putting money towards legal technology or supporting ADR. What do we teach? There's got to be an and in there, right? For me, this is it. It says that we can't just focus on the newest, shiniest thing, which is legal technology. We can't just focus on what was the shiniest thing, ADR. Both of these are really important and actually crucial in order for our students and us to move forward in this 21st century. And it's just what we teach, right? So there's nothing that's particularly mind-blowing about this, but we are hearing from people through this validation study that TR is doing, as well as other events where we've been presenting the Delta model, a lot of positive feedback. Legal departments, Coca-Cola, law firms like Denton's are saying, yeah, this makes sense. And so if those types of places are saying this makes sense, I think that the future of what we're teaching still has a lot of validity. We just might need to embrace the role technology is playing in addition. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Allison.
That was pretty neat.
Well, I love going live. And I actually love having a short period of time. It makes me want to be even more provocative. But thank you very much to Pepperdine for hosting this. I love dispute resolution prom. That's my favorite. I kind of looking for the bucket of blood. So
oh my gosh.
I also like the title of this meeting, which I think is great. Appreciating our legacy and engaging the future. And I think talking about online dispute resolution, I very much want to put it in that context, because I'm really glad that I went after Allison too, because so much of what she said I think is crucially important. For those of us who are thinking about engaging the future, we have to think about the world to come. We have to think about meeting the people that we're trying to open this world to, where they are and what their life is going to look like over the next few decades. Mark Andreessen was one of the guys who started the Mosaic browser. He's a big, heavy hitter guy in Silicon Valley. One of the things that Mark Andreessen said is, software is going to eat the world. And I think that is proven to be prescient. Because if you look at industries like medicine, if you look at industries like finance, if you look at the entertainment industry, technology has completely transformed those industries. If you take someone out of those fields in 1985 and drop them in the field today, they would have no idea what they were looking at. I mean, I was watching the movie Trading Places a while back, and at the end they have Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy on the floor of this Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and they're holding up pieces of paper, trying to sell shares. Like, who wants to take my order? All of that is being done by computers now. And what's happening now, the law is being transformed by technology, just like finance was transformed by technology. And I go to bar association meetings and lawyers say, what about my job? What's going to happen? And if you look at what happened in medicine and finance and entertainment, those industries didn't go away. They got actually bigger. It's just that a lot of the stuff that people used to do, now machines are doing. So now we need to think, what does this mean for the law, and what does this mean for dispute resolution? There is going to be a Zuckerberg in legal tech. The problem is we don't know if he's a 3L at Pepperdine right now, or if he's in second grade down the street at Malibu Elementary, or if he's in second grade in Hyderabad. You know, there is a whole new world that is coming around the corner, and we need to open up. And again, the title of this conference is perfect: Appreciating Our Legacy and Engaging the Future. All of the work that we have to do has to come out of the great work that's already been done. Another provocative thing I'm going to say, people always talk about ODR and ADR as if they're two different things. Let me tell you, ODR is ADR. And I'll tell you, ODR is the future of ADR. And I'll make a prediction that in 10 years, 95% of dispute resolution that's happening in the world is going to be what we refer to as ODR. And it's not going to be driven by the practitioners, and it's not going to be driven by the academics. It's going to be driven by party preference. We have to build a new justice system for the internet. And the system that we have with courts and judges and jails and geographically bound law, it's not going to work. Dispute resolution is the only model that's flexible enough to embrace the future. But we don't know what it's going to look like. So we have to give our students tools so they can invent the future. If you go to business schools, they teach you all these skills, elementary accounting, marketing, and they say, okay, go invent something. We don't know what you're going to do. But if you go to law schools, they often say, okay, we're going to teach you how to think like a lawyer. We're going to give you all the case law. This is what it means. So I guess what I'm saying in terms of envisioning this future, our students, the young people who are entering this field, they hunger for it. They feel it. We can see that so many people who graduate with JDs, they end up not practicing in the law. They get sucked into technology. But we need to think about how OER can be integrated into the courts. And not just OER, but also more radical reforms. Like we were talking about, Allison was talking about machine learning, artificial intelligence. But smart contracts and blockchain, all of these things are coming down the road. This is the biggest opportunity we have had to expand access to justice in the last century. But we don't know how it's going to work. We have to figure it out. Iteratively, together, we have to fail forward and then improve and improve and improve. That's what our students are going to be wrestling with, and that's what we need to help them do. And we have to ensure that all that has yet to come will be building on the foundation of the work that we've been doing over the past few decades. So the last thing I want to mention also, you know that the Pew Charitable Trust has announced they're going to be spending $250 million over the next 5 years to promote an expansion of access to justice through the use of technology. And they're working with the National Center for State Courts, particularly on bringing online dispute resolution and litigant portals into the justice system. So this is a perfect example of how we need to be teaching into these initiatives. We don't know. As I was saying in Silicon Valley, you need to build an MVP, a minimum viable product, and you need to fail forward. We're not going to get it right out of the box. We all need to work together to figure out what this future looks like. But these initiatives are here today, and that's what all of us need to do to ensure that the people who are doing this innovation understand the value of the great work that's been happening in this field for the last few decades, so that we can build from that foundation.
You still have 2 minutes.
I still have 2 minutes.
Can you believe it?
Even better, I have more things I want to talk about. You know, I will say that earlier there was a great conversation about what is access to justice. Now, I'm not a lawyer, which is ironic. I love teaching in law schools, and I say I'm an NLM, non-lawyer mediator. And for me, that is a feature, not a bug.
Right.
But I do not think that access to justice is synonymous with access to lawyers. And I think the reason why we can't solve this problem of pro se litigants and access to justice is because we're not willing to think outside the box. So the potential that technology brings to the work that we do is enormous in finding new, exciting possibilities. I mean, I see Don up there smiling. You know, I mean, some of the work he's done with picture itself is fantastic. These are the kind of innovations we need to put into every practitioner's toolbox, because we need to be thinking creatively about where all this is going. We can't solve new problems with old techniques. But if we put new tools in the toolbox, it can enable our students and ourselves to be a little more creative in thinking about these solutions. Richard Susskind wrote a book called The End of Lawyers, which I'm sure many of you know. But it's not the end of lawyers exclamation point. It's the end of lawyers question mark. And he says, if you have less than 5 years left in your practice, you don't need to worry about all the stuff that's happening. You can write it out. But if you've got more than 5 years left, you better think about what this means, what all these technologies mean for the field that you're entering. Because your practice in 20 years is not going to look like anything we have today. So you can't just look to history to figure out what's coming around then. All right. The other thing I would say is alternative dispute resolution is defined by the way it is not. If Sheila and I have a dispute and we decide to play a game of checkers and whoever wins takes the money, guess what? That's ADR. We don't teach that in ADR classes, but we need all of our students to become dispute systems designers because we think from such a broad palette. We shouldn't just lock ourselves into mediation and arbitration. We need to think expansively about all the possibilities that technology opens for us as practitioners and systems designers. So I think that we have an opportunity to live up to the values and the objectives that have been articulated by leaders in this field, my mentors in this field, in a way I think technology is giving us the ability to deliver on that vision. It's just we need to be open to the changes that are coming. So when we talk about globalization and the technology revolution, that's my vision. So thank you very much.
All right. Well, we, in fact, left some time for your questions, so we welcome them now. And we have a microphone for anyone who has a question. Okay, yeah, I guess we're all taking a breath after that, huh?
Yeah, all right.
Over here, Doug.
I just don't know where to start. But I do want to make a comment about Hal's topic.
Well, this is much more interesting.
No, it's great.
It's okay. I love y'all's topic.
The Singapore Convention amends the UNCITRAL conciliation model law.
Mm-hmm.
And the UNCITRAL conciliation model is incorporated into the UMA. So what we're doing in Georgia is we're about to adopt the UMA, and we've revised it so that the Singapore Convention runs through to the UMA.
Oh, great.
So those of you who are in states that already have the UMA, you might need to look at amending because it doesn't amend automatically into the UMA version that you already have. Some states, Massachusetts and New York, I think, are still considering taking on the UMA.
Sure.
And but they need to be aware that they need to change the language slightly in order to make the Singapore Convention flow through.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Great,
I
thank
should
you.
clarify something in response to your comments, because there was so much I could have discussed on this. But what you're referring to is there actually were two documents that came out of this process, and I see Ellen's hand's going up, so you're probably going to mention that. You want to talk about that, the two documents? There's a model act and there's a convention. And the model, let me just mention that. There's a model act and there's a convention. The model act includes all the amendments you're talking about. The reason there are two documents is because that was one of the various compromises that allowed us to go forward with this project. Because there's a number of people, particularly the EU, was very opposed to having a convention. So the idea is that there were two tracks available. If you just want to have a model act and have countries decide to adopt that statute, that's fine, and then maybe down the road they'll adopt the treaty. For those that want to go right for the treaty, then you can do that. So that's why there's two documents.
Ellen.
I was just going to say I'm working with the Uniform Law Commission on a committee that's trying to come up with ideas for new uniform acts in civil litigation and dispute resolution. And one of the possibilities is to come up with a new act that would incorporate the Singapore Convention, not the Singapore Convention, the revised model law. I mean, it's possible that Congress and the federal government will ratify the treaty. It's also possible that it will end up on a state-by-state basis. Another possibility is actually a broader uniform law that would include domestic enforcement of domestic mediations. So, I mean, who knows what they will decide to do? It's early days, but I'm glad to know about Georgia. We'll look at what you've done.
I think there's a question in the far back.
Colin, I heard you say something that sounded really pithy, but I want to be sure I understand what it really means, because you said you cannot solve new problems with old techniques. And that sounds really great, and yet I think this is a field that has sort of rested on incorporating very ancient and sort of traditional approaches to the work. And so I'm sure you mean it in a more refined way, but I wanted you to say more about what you mean by that.
Sure, absolutely. It is very pithy. I think it's very quotable. I like the bumper sticker approach. I only had a couple minutes. No, I mean, again, I think one of the things I like about the title of this conference is because we have to respect our legacy, but we also have to engage the future. And I think what I'm saying, I think what I was referring to when I said that is court-based approaches. You know, I'm now working for a big company that sells court case management and e-filing systems, and I'm spending a lot of time trying to work with these court administrative officers and chief justices to envision a new future. So I think you can hear me being provocative in saying, hey, we don't want to just pave the cow paths here, you know, especially when we think about these high-volume, cross-border, low-value cases. You know, the notion of a justice system that's chopped up into counties in the United States, you know, where a lawyer who represents somebody in a neighboring state can be disbarred. I mean, we have to radically rethink some of those rules. And I think I do see leaders in the legal field acknowledging that. I mean, you look at the Bar Association presidents in particular, they want to appeal to younger people. They want to liberalize some of these rules. We're seeing some of the UPL restrictions. We're talking a lot more about unbundling. You know, but again, people say, oh, what you're doing with online dispute resolution, it's so radical. But, you know, Amy and I just wrote an article about smart contracts and blockchain and machine learning. I mean, that is a vision where you do not have judges, you do not have lawyers, you do not have courts. Code becomes the law. Instead of writing paper contracts, you write computer programs and you put them into this global ledger and they're self-enforcing. Now, is that going to happen next year? No. But I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen over 10 years, 15 years. These are pretty radical rethinkings of the way that we have traditionally done things. So I don't want to be pithy about it. I think we have to be very thoughtful in the way that we engage these changes, and that's why we have to appreciate our legacy. You know, I don't train ODR, online mediators from scratch. I want face-to-face mediators who can transition their skills into online because I think it's of a piece. But I also need people who are open to rethinking the way they do things. And because our society is changing radically, and that means the way we deliver services has to change in almost an equally radical way. So I think that's why I'm trying to be provocative. But thank you for the opportunity to clarify.
Colin has several times mentioned how much he likes the title to the conference, and I do too. My husband came to calling it "Why You Guys Think You're So Great" conference. He asked, "Are you going to do an end zone dance when you're?" So I won't, but I think we have time for one or two more questions. I believe there's one in the back. Guillermo?
Thank you. One of my areas of specialization is also energy law, and so I was wondering if you have any reflections on access to energy and internet, because that's a conversation that we are having in the energy field about energy justice and giving more access to people that actually don't have access. So I hear all these new technologies and new techniques for accessing justice and using ODR, where there are people around the world and even in the United States that have homeless people that don't have access to actually be able to plug their cell phone to even engage at this resolution mechanism online. And so I'm wondering if you that have reflected on this have actually considered the difficulties that we face when it comes to access to energy.
Well, actually, I was talking to somebody recently, and the idea of using blockchain technology, and it's possible that you could have smart contracts developed for a smart grid, where energy that's not being used and where it would automatically be essentially swapped where it's needed. And then you would have to resolve, there will be disputes. I mean, it's impossible for there not to be disputes. We talk about self-enforcing smart contracts built in computer code. Code is law. Well, guess what? There's going to be ambiguities. Even if you talk to developers in blockchain, they have different interpretations of the computer code itself. So there are going to be disputes, and I think online dispute resolution will be the means for resolving those disputes. But in energy, actually, yeah, I just heard about sort of some really exciting ways that you could use blockchain technology with a smart grid.
I think I understood some of that.
Oh.
No, I did. I think one last question in the far back, and then we'll close. It's coming.
Did you try to get dispute resolution or conflict management into that upper left corner, but you couldn't? It says relationship management, but I just wondered
What happened?
That's fair. Well, I guess two things. So one, yes, conflict management's on the longer list. So this visual is just like the top three, and it was based on some in-person surveys that we did of leaders reacting to the model, and now TR is going further and validating it with a list of 10 different characteristics behind each of the sides. And the characteristics that we originally chose come from ILS, the Institute for the Advancement of the American Legal System, published in reaction to some of the Richard Susskind work, published a study called Educating Tomorrow's Lawyers that identified a whole list of characteristics that they had found rose to the top based on a survey they did of practicing attorneys.
All right. Thank you all very much, and thanks to our panel.